Should you be a full-time Floridian or a snowbird? A snowbird is someone who travels to the northern states for about 6 months out of the year, primarily in the summertime, and then they travel down to the southern states in the wintertime to basically travel with the pleasant climate, 70, 80 degrees, something in that range. And that's a decision they make to obtain that lifestyle. Some people do it by RVing or car living. Few do that way. And then some do it by a conventional way, they buy two houses. They buy a house down in the southern state and they buy a house down in the northern state. And they try to get one for maybe a little bit cheaper so they can maintain that lifestyle. Even though having two houses is a stretch, even when you have the financial capability, you got to be very careful because it comes with a lot of maintenance and things like that. So for a while in my journey, I really thought of me being a snowbird. And I really tried to design my life around that. I originally looked at buying a vacation property in Florida, and that's what I was going to do, and maybe buying a smaller house up north and then just going back and forth. But after much research and much thought, I would have been able to swing it, but it would have been living at the top end of my means. And it would have required me to output so much of my money to have two properties, and the practicality. That's what I really looked at. The practicality of me actually spending time in, especially the house I was looking at to buy in Florida, would be not practical, especially at that time of my life when I worked up north, when I worked in New Jersey. You have to look at the amount of time you plan to spend in one place. I mean, even if you're going to spend 6 months out of the year in one place, only 50% of the time to spend, 50% of your monthly income to, achieve that. It's not wise. It's not wise to have two properties on average. There's exceptions. And if you're not going to really spend a lot of time in either the northern state or the southern state, it's just not worth it. I mean, you're better off renting on average, and you're better off just because, too, you get tired of the same location. I mean, you may buy in an area where there's a lot of amusements for your children. Then they get older, they don't want to go to those places. You may like a certain area, but then over the years it changes. I mean, you just have to be mindful that if you're looking at the snowbird life and you're really looking at anchoring yourself down to two properties, that may cause you to enjoy life less and work more. Because in your mind, you're thinking, if I buy a property in Florida, for example, then in my mind, like I'm almost there now. Because now I have an anchor there and I'm there and I can actually register all my stuff in Florida. That's exciting, and it is exciting. But the practicality of you spending more time there, the practicality of now that you have more financial resources outputted to maintain that property, is you're going to have less quality of life, not better quality of life. In your mind, there's a trigger that goes off, say, I just bought a house in Florida, I'm happy now. But the reality is you're not going to spend as much time here, and the reality is you're going to be spending more money for less time you're spending. Really, you have to kind of almost commit to an area. You have to commit to what do you want out of life. And for me, even in the summertime at the Jersey Shore, the culture is not the same. The environment is not the same. For me. And so it's almost like torture for myself to travel to a northern state just to try to maintain, it's almost like a society norm now, try to maintain 70 or 80 degrees because that's an acceptable amount of temperature that people like. So just like it's acceptable that you should have a 3-bedroom, 2-bath house, like people pressure you into that, sometimes people pressure you into, you shouldn't like it when it's too hot. You shouldn't like it, when it's too humid. But you should like whatever you want. And you shouldn't, they often said that snowbird's the best of both worlds. But I don't know. I used to kind of think that, but then I kind of disagree. If you really don't like to be in a northern state, if you don't like the culture, if you don't like the terrain, if you don't like the area, but you just force yourself to a northern state in the summer to avoid some heat, even though some of the northern states, even New Jersey, it gets hotter certain days up there than it does down in the southern states. It's just not worth it. I mean, and again, I've done videos where there was hurricane in New Jersey, Hurricane Sandy. It was worse than most hurricanes in Florida. So sometimes you think you're avoiding, I don't want to live in Florida full-time year because of hurricanes. And that's a good thing to evaluate because that's a reality. I don't want to lie to you. But also, you could, then you have to deal with nor'easter snowstorms up north as well. Everything in life has give and take, but I don't think it's worth it on average to be a snowbird. I really don't. For me, this is for me now. Some people may think it is. I want to be committed all year round to living here. With an occasional travel, because why? I've traveled up and down the entire East Coast of America. And for me, and that's all I want to travel. If I wanted to travel somewhere else, I would. People, in the beginning of my journey, a lot of people, especially on YouTube, they try to say, go west, go west. I don't want to go west. If I wanted to go west, I would. And the more people try to force me to do that, the more I say, shut the fuck up. And I blocked a couple people for that. Yeah, look, this is my life. What are you doing? Some people parked in back of their parents', I don't want to say that. All I want to say is, I want to spend the majority of my time where I like. And I don't want to it's almost like trendy to be a snowbird. It's almost like, high class nomad. You have to ask yourself whether environment, practicality, expense, does it really line up to spend half the year here and half the year there? Does it really benefit your quality of life? Or does it just put up an illusion that you're this suave and sophisticated person that you know how to travel with the weather trends? And, if you enjoy it, then you don't need to answer that question. Do you want to be a snowbird or full-time resident? But, for me, there's nothing like the palm trees. There's nothing like the beaches of Florida. There's nothing like the hot, humid climate that I like. And it has a little bit different shades in the summer and in the fall, spring. I mean, obviously a lot of people like the Florida winters, and that's understandable. But, in one sense for me, especially in northern Florida, in the winter, it could be too cool. How much time, money, and effort are you really putting into being where you have two properties? I think two properties, again, unless you really, really have financial wherewithal and you really, really doesn't faze you. And the maintenance and the mental, that's the thing, because there's a financial part of it and there's a mental. And the mental aggravation of thinking about two properties, of maintaining two properties, of dealing with two properties, if the mental aggravation doesn't also cut into your quality of life, then I say do you. But your mental well-being is partly contributed to how much you have to think about, how much you have to worry about. And the more you own, the more you have to worry about. There's no way to cut. It doesn't matter if you have a big money. It doesn't matter. What matters is your quality of life. Your quality of life is determined how much stress, how much worry, how much demand is put on yourself, and how much freedom you have. And with two properties, you don't have a lot of freedom. And with the whole process of, all right, pack everything, go up north, pack everything, go south, I live light. I live with one bag. For me, I just travel as I please. Not many people had that opportunity, but for many years I couldn't, so I don't want to hear a lot of bullshit either. All I could say is I looked into the option of being a snowbird, and I finally came to the conclusion I don't want to be up north. I like it hot. I like Florida better than the northern states. I don't like mountains. I don't like the terrain. I like flat, beachy, hot, tropical, all year round, Florida, full-time resident. And I got love for the snowbirds. I'm not going to be one of those people that curse the snowbirds, all right? Because a lot of people do that too. A lot of people hating on them. Oh, the snowbirds are coming down. No, I don't care. I don't care. I just do me. Do you. But decide. Full-time or snowbird.